負けんじゃないわよ。
Characters that embody vengeance and retribution are a very popular archetype. It's honestly no wonder that there would be an entire class dedicated to the concept in the Fate series. Conceptually, they could even be a standard class, based solely on the prevalence the idea of an Avenger has in humanity's collective conscience. However, that same prevalence is also why they cannot be standard, and why they are a threat to humanity. Hey there, party people! Today we are talking about the fan-favorite class Avenger, with the most recent, as of this recording, ordeal call being what it was. I just want to talk about them. Most of this video is going to be going over the basics, what most people know, not trying to give out any big theories here. Mostly, I wanted to have the Avenger class defined in a relatively succinct manner, and probably clear up some of the things that aren't completely obvious. Also, while I don't plan any bombshells, there will still be surprises, so stick around to check them out. And also, subscribe to the channel for more surprises in other videos. Now, let's touch on the vengeful character archetype, because it really is such a staple of storytelling. Since ancient folklore, tales of revenge both in life and after death have been told probably for as long as stories have been told. It's a very human and understandable reaction. If you are wronged, you naturally want to have that wrong righted in some way. And the most straightforward method that is the knee-jerk reaction of most people is to get even. You plucked my eye out, well, I'm taking yours. However, it should be noted that characters that seek vengeance take on many forms, from heroes to villains. But they share one common trait. The audience tends to feel some amount of sympathy for them, and they serve some kind of moral, intentionally or not. Take, for example, Kayako from the movie series The Grudge. She is an Onryo, a terrible and vengeful spirit that lashes out at anyone that enters her home, even though they've more than likely done nothing to her. And this is all because she is consumed with rage and vengeance, having been killed at the hands of a horrifically abusive husband. It is a tragic story, yes, and we as the audience feel for her, though still we understand the idea that she is evil because she was warped by what originally started out as what could be considered righteous fury. And then on the other side of the coin, we have a hero like the Kuroe, a tragic character that was murdered alongside a loved one, only to be resurrected as a spirit of vengeance. However, in this case, the Kuroe is only concerned with those who are at fault. In this way, they serve as a form of divine retribution to punish evil. Examples like these two, and dozens of others, give vengeance as a whole a very mixed message in human cultures all around the world. And this is also reflected in Fate's heroic spirits to a certain extent as well. Most Avengers fall somewhere in the middle between these two types of characters. Fundamentally, they are vengeful spirits and lash out at everything, even those who haven't wronged them directly. But in Fate Grand Order, they are used to defend humanity, which is slightly paradoxical to the nature of the class. It should also be noted that the distinction between an Avenger and a Berserker can be a bit muddied. Both of them have clear anger issues flying into rages. Before Grand Order, you could say that the distinction is that an Avenger's rage is more focused. They aren't mindless beasts. But now, there are so many Berserker that aren't mindless either. I'd say that it comes from the manifestation. A Berserker's rage doesn't require logic to be behind it, nor a goal. It is just pure and blinding rage. Even someone like Penthesilea falls into this category even though she does have a vendetta against specifically Achilles, and that is because she also has other triggers that throw her into a rage, such as being called beautiful. Like I said, it is a bit muddied overall, and hell, Berserkers are a muddied class to begin with. I got a video where I talk about that, but there is another, more important distinction between the two. Avengers are sort of like Beast Light in a way, as they are enemies of humanity, though in a different way than foreigners are, because they have heavy ties to humanity itself, and in a way that you can consider is deeper than any other class. At the heart of the Avenger class, they are intrinsically linked to emotion, specifically love and hate. You cannot seek revenge if you've loved nothing, and obviously a desire for revenge is hatred in and of itself. There are even two categories of Avengers based on this. Ones born of hatred and speak of love, and those born of love that speak of hatred. My earlier examples do fit this notion as well, though not exactly perfectly. Kayako is indeed born of hatred, though speaking of love doesn't quite fit as she has no compassion to speak of. Though the Crow is certainly born from love, and speaks of hatred in the sense of wanting to purge those that have harmed them and their loved ones. In Fate, the examples given are Angra Mayu and Dante's respectively, and Manyu does sort of link to Kayako, as by the time of their manifestations, they are more like curses than actual people. Also, it should be noted that the Mango is the only non-event Avenger not to be link lost, aside from Marie Antoinette. As I have not found a proper translation, and don't really plan on reading it before it comes out in NA, I only know bits and pieces of the Ordeal Call 2 story. But it seems that all the Avengers that left would fall into the Born from Hatred category, while those that remain are either not part of the main story, or are born from love, which I would hazard to say is just OG Avenger, while Marie Antoinette just happened to be summoned after the others left, which, from a storytelling perspective, is really quite sloppy if you ask me, if that is truly the case. Though, speaking of Marie Alter, we've come to the idea of Avengers as secondary classes. Marie Antoinette, as we summon her normally, holds no feelings of anger or desire for retribution. This altar is just another side of her, one that despairs and rages and mourns. On the surface, it is a similar situation to Jeanne d'Arc, though for Jeanne, her altar was meant to be an impossibility outside of the use of a holy grail. For Marie, from what I can understand, her altar is always a possibility. It is something that exists, if not in history, in the minds of humanity. However, it is not something that is synonymous with Marie Antoinette. Not in the same way that it is with the Count of Monte Cristo or Antonio Salieri. This could be said of other heroic spirits, such as Anastasia Romanov, who does qualify for being an Avenger. And it makes sense. She and her family were killed during the Bolshevik Revolution. Of course she would want vengeance. But be that as it may, it's not everything about her. Granted, nothing about her historical information really lends itself to being a caster either, as Vi is just sort of tacked onto her with the Romanov family being a mage family in the Type Moon universe. Though she'd likely not have a class otherwise outside of maybe Avenger, which is a curious notion all things considered. The idea of Anastasia surviving the revolution was a widespread idea and hope, even getting movie adaptations on it. So the next logical step to believing she survived would be her plotting some kind of revenge. And even tying into Fate's lore of the character, she did make a proper contract with Vi in her final moments for the sole purpose of getting vengeance on the soldiers, cursing them to never know peace. So if we take in the contract with Vi and make the rumors of her survival true, then it's very easy to make an Anastasia altar that's an Avenger class. One who uses curses and powers to not only take her vengeance on the soldiers, but to then go on to seek retribution from the entire country. very much taking inspiration from evil ice queens in various fictions across the world. It's a very simple what-if version of the character. Though there are, of course, servants that don't really need a what-if, where the Avenger class just suits them naturally. Their want for vengeance is part of who they are. However, the difference is that it is not all-consuming. It's not something that takes them over at all times. They are very much in control of their emotions and are able to act as heroes should. This is exemplified best in the fan-favorite pick for an Avenger alter, Boudica. Her desire for revenge against Nero and Romans altogether is a big part of her real-life depiction and her Fate counterpart. But as said before, it is not her be-all and end-all. First and foremost, she is a queen, a leader and protector, most showcased in her defense of noble phantasm. That is what she prioritizes over all. So with that in mind, I believe an Avenger Boudica would in fact be one born of hatred, speaking of love. While she does hate Romans wholeheartedly, it's not necessarily why she fights them, as she is shown to be able to work with them. She fights to protect that which she loves, rather than to destroy her enemies outright. She is able to show compassion after everything she's been through, as she doesn't want others to suffer the way she has. And I think that is a very important distinction. That said, as an Avenger, I could see her being more offensive to contrast with her writer self, and she would of course fall into the trap all Avengers fall into, and really, what all people who seek revenge fall into, and that is the very cycle of revenge itself. To seek revenge and get it is to create another person that wants to seek revenge, and even without that, taking revenge will never satisfy, especially for spirits that are essentially incarnations of revenge, who are unable to truly change and grow, unable to let go of those feelings of despair and rage. That is the biggest reason why Avengers are ill-suited to fight for humanity. Their purpose is to rage against it. That is why they are like a lesser beast class. Someone like Angramanyu is even a beast class candidate. Yes, the Master of Chaldea is able to direct that rage to the enemies of humanity, similar to how Berserkers operate. But once the threat is gone, what place do Avengers truly have? They will still crave their retribution. They will still desire to lash out and obtain their unobtainable revenge. They are an intrinsic part of humanity, and it is for that reason they cannot protect humanity. They are something that humans are meant to overcome. Blood begets blood. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth will make the whole world blind and starved. These are the lessons taught about revenge and its dangers. And while there are many stories where revenge is indeed just and applauded, its only reward is always just the act itself. Obtaining revenge can bring about a form of catharsis, but it never can bring back what was taken. So what is there to be after you and your loved ones have been avenged? Perhaps a peace of mind that those who have wronged you can never wrong another person the same way. And maybe for a select few that can be enough. But then there are those who instead burn with pure, all-consuming hatred that instead wish to make everyone intimately understand their suffering rather than protect them from it. That is ultimately the difference between the two types of Avengers when you get down to it. And sadly, most fall into the latter. Remember that Ritsuka and Chaldea is a very special case, where things play out a bit differently. The true nature of most Avengers is the endless cycle of suffering and rage, which is why they cannot stay. They will never be gone forever. It will likely be impossible to get rid of Avengers forever, but their role cannot stay as defenders, save for a very select few, and even then, those are a danger. But those are my thoughts. What do you think about the Avenger class and potential Avenger alters that there could be in the future? Let me know down in the comments below. I am very interested to find out. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time in the void. Later.